What's up, everybody? It's Chicago talk show host, and in this video, I want to talk about the woods not being a church. So, why do we go to the woods? Why do we go to the forest? Right? So, I wrote some notes down here, and it seems that for the appeal for a lot of us, it's a sense of peace. We want to find some peace and get away from something. It's a refuge, a source of refuge. Again, goes back with the idea of peace, nature, connection with nature, the beauty of nature, right? There's a certain sense of realness there, reality, right? Getting away from computer screens and phone screens and just looking at a mossy bank, right? Um, it's known to be a gathering place. A gathering place. It's been connected with the idea of being a sacred place, which is interesting, right? With the idea of sacredness, you have the idea of religion, at least, and spirituality. That's what comes to mind for me. But it is a curious thing when you start going there to the idea of giving thanks, right? We as a people, as humanity itself, so often we regard nature with reverence and an intense beauty, and so often, again, a sense of thanks. And that's interesting to me because, you know, I get it. We go through life, all manner of strife, calamity, chaos, and it's painful. It's deeply painful, and it's crazy, and it can be so intense where we just need a place to just get away from it and take a break and just take the volume all the way down to 0 and just bring it back up to listen to being out in nature, the birds singing, the sounds of that mossy brook. Maybe there's like a little bit of a stream going through and you hear the water, right? We want that sort of thing to help re-energize ourselves. But I would say that these things is the secular response to life. Because as a Catholic, I look at this and I'm just like, you know what? That's great and all, but I get all these things from going to church, right? And what the beauty is with going to church, you have the sacraments. I'm fortified by my understanding in God and what Jesus Christ did for us. So there's intense security there. And I don't have all the answers. There's still a lot of mystery, but that mystery is beautiful. And what I want to do in this video is I'm going to go over different sources and I'm going to talk about the forest. And I want to talk about that maybe for the people who are going to the forest, especially for the people who know about God and who know about Jesus Christ, and you're still going to the forest to give thanks. I think you're looking for love in the wrong place. I think you're better off going to church and give thanks there. Why? Because I'm gonna tell you something. The problems that you're praying about, the rocks at a stream are not gonna help you. All right? Those family problems, the money problems, a waterfall isn't gonna help with that. It's a beautiful waterfall. It sounds awesome. It's not gonna help you with that. True hope is found through Christ and God. And that's but we're gonna talk about it. And you let me know what you think. So for the first source, we're gonna look at Augustine's book, The Confessions. It's a great read. I'm about halfway through. I recommend you pick it up. Without further ado, let's see what he has to say. This is in book 5. He writes, "But they have not known the way, your word, through whom you have made the things they count, and those who count them, and the sense by which they perceive what they count, and the mind with which they count them. And your wisdom is beyond counting. Your only begotten Son himself became wisdom and righteousness and sanctification for us, and was counted among us, and paid his taxes to Caesar. This way they have not known, the way by which they might descend from themselves to him, and through him rise up to him. This way they have not known. They think they are radiant and exalted as the stars of heaven, when all the while they have fallen headlong to earth, and their heart is darkened in its folly. They have indeed uttered many truths about your creation, but the truth itself, the craftsman of creation, they do not seek with proper piety, and hence do not find, or if they do find him, then having known God, they honor him not as God, nor do they give thanks to him. And in their own conceits, they have dwindled away to naught. They say they are wise, ascribing to themselves the things that are yours, and in their blindness and perversity, they do not stop at ascribing to you what is theirs. That is to say, attributing their lies to you, who are the truth, and exchanging the glory of the incorruptible God for the likeness of a corruptible man, of birds, of four-footed beasts, and of creeping things. They turn your truth into a lie and worship and serve the creature rather than the creator. So I agree with Augustine there. I think it is mistake to worship the creation over the creator. Stuff. So I urge you that to reconsider what you're giving thanks to. A plant, a tree, it's not the same thing as the entity that created it all, which is of course God, and giving thanks to him. All right, everybody. So for my next source that we're going to talk about when we're talking about the woods and the forest, I'm going to bring up none other than The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Go now, child, and thou shalt tease me as thou wilt another time, cried Hester Prynne. But do not stray far, keep where thou canst hear the babble of the brook. The child went singing away, following up the current of the brook, and striving to mingle a more lightsome cadence with its melancholy voice. But the little stream would not be comforted, and still kept telling its unintelligible secret of some very mournful mystery that had happened, or making a prophetic lamentation about something that was yet to happen, within the verge of the dismal forest. So Pearl, who had enough of shadow in her own little life, chose to break off all acquaintance with this repining brook. She set herself, therefore, to gathering violets and wood anemones and some scarlet columbines that she found growing in the crevices of a high rock. When her elf child had departed, Hester Prynne made a step or two towards a track that led through the forest, but still remained under the deep shadow of the trees. She beheld the minister advancing along the path entirely alone and leaning on a staff which he had cut by the wayside. He looked haggard and feeble and betrayed a nerveless despondency in his air, which had never so remarkably characterized him in his walks about the settlement, not in any other situation where he deemed himself liable to notice. Here it was, woefully visible in this intense seclusion of the forest, which of itself would have been a heavy trial to the spirits. There was a listlessness in his gait, as if he saw no reason for taking one step farther, nor felt any desire to do so, but would have been glad, could he be glad of anything, to fling himself down at the root of the nearest tree and lie there passive forevermore. The leaves might bestrew him, and the soil gradually accumulate and form a little hillock over his frame. But no matter whether there were life in it or no, death was too definite an object to be wished for or avoided. To Hester's eye, the Reverend Mr. Dimmesdale exhibited no symptom of positive and vivacious suffering, except that, as little Pearl had remarked, he kept his hand over his heart. So that's interesting, right? If you haven't read The Scarlet Letter, make sure you go ahead and read that. You need to be reading that. But remember that. So you have and the drama of the story, there's guilt is a huge pervading theme in the Scarlet Letter. And you have the players, the drama, the cast members, and you have this figure who's harboring a lot of guilt, Dimsdale, and he's hanging out by the tree, just lying down, and he's got his hand over his heart. Interesting. All right, so now we got through with the Scarlet Letter reference. Now we're going to do another source. This comes from Roosh V's book. This is American Pilgrim. And so make sure you check out my book review, by the way, of this. But in a chapter called Home, Roosh V, he writes, on on one of the steep trails, I saw a sign from the Appalachian Trail. If you're from the East Coast, you've surely heard of this trail, one of the oldest in the country that spans 2,180 miles from Georgia to Maine. Hiking the entire Appalachian Trail is growing in popularity. Tired of city life or just looking for meaning, many people take a sabbatical and walk the entire thing to, quote, feel close to nature, end quote, or just to have an impressive feat notched on their belt. But such a trail can only provide meaning temporarily. And then, as soon as your journey is complete, the meaning is gone. And all you have left are memories that diminish with time. I'd be the first to agree that walking the Appalachian Trail is healthier than sleeping with 100 girls, or having a goal to buy a huge house. But it still keeps you firmly rooted in the material world of thinking that there is something here on earth that will yield satisfaction and purpose. Satan does not at all mind if you desire to climb Mount Everest and would actually help you succeed because it gives you something to be proud of. I desire to feel no pride, for pride is not of God. If I did a truly good thing, then the reward will come not from my feelings, but solely from God. So I agree with Roosh, right? There's that sense of pride, right? So you have the secular, or even worse, the lukewarm, who understand who God and Jesus Christ is, but they determine that it's insufficient to them from pride. There's a rejection there, and I think it comes from pride where it's just like, okay, I want these things. I want hope. I want to give thanks. I want reverence. This is a beautiful thing. This is calling to me. But there's a rejection, there's this intense rejection to go to the place, which is the church. Rather, the person, the proud person who's secular or lukewarm ends up rejecting that idea of going to Sunday Mass and engaging with the sacraments, and they want it their way. They want to have those things their way, and their way that they can best achieve these things is by going into the forest, going into the woods, and trying to get it that way. All right, all right. Now I'm gonna bust out the big guns. I'm gonna bring out the Culture Wars magazine. This is from May 2024. It's the failed quest for American identity. So listen to this. E. Michael Jones writes, neither Plato nor Aristotle understood that the world was created by God. The two greatest philosophers the world had ever seen were crippled by a radically dualistic understanding of nature, which posited an eternal world of forms, which never changed, and a temporal world of flux, which defied rational explanation because it did nothing but change. The effect of reversing the relationship between existence and essence, which the Europeans had inherited from the Greeks, was so profound that it withstood the traumatic effect of the Reformation and made its way to the New World, and from there out of the eastern Piedmont and over the Appalachian Mountains, ever westward, creating American identity along the way. Existence on the frontier called the American essence into being. American history has been described as a long debate on original sin, and my theory about the relationship between essence and existence is no exception to that rule. The same original sin which the Calvinists exaggerated and the Transcendentalists denied played a crucial role in the implementation of Aquinas's revolutionary understanding of the two aspects of being, ranging from the positive effect that it had in the development of American architecture under the Green Brothers to the negative effect of the quote mystery clause end quote in Planned Parenthood versus Casey when Justice Kennedy opined in words that Milton could have put into the mouth of Satan. John Milton, of course, the author of Paradise Lost, in which he portrays Satan, Lucifer, as the hero of that story. Back to EMJ. So EMJ writes, into the mouth of Satan that, quote, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life, end quote. For most American history, failures outnumbered successes, forcing Americans looking for an identity to choose between two equally repugnant paradigms, epitomized best by Pap. The natural man Huck Finn identifies with Adam, who was, quote, all mud, end quote, and the widow Douglas, who represents, quote, civilization, end quote, as at war with nature. Because America was, as Huntington tells us, a Protestant nation. It never learned that grace perfects nature, because that was a Catholic notion which could be dismissed out of hand. Huckleberry's Finn's bind is still with us. It was precisely that bind which prompted George Bernard Shaw to opine that America was a country which went from barbarism to decadence without ever finding civilization along the way. The quest for civilization continues. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I want you to think about those words, and I want you to think about the article and read the article if you haven't. And for me, what keeps ringing in my ears is that quote that America was a country that went from barbarism to decadence without ever finding civilization along the way. Is that not the perfect description of our country? It just it's like we're told this story and it's just like boom, boom, bam, this thing happened and then this thing happened and now we're here. And it's like, okay, great, but what is here? And here is the current state of things. All right, everybody. So for my last source that I want to share with you, it's once again Culture Wars magazine, and it's the July-August 2024 issue. And it's from an article called Star Wars in the Balkans, American Myths and European Mysteries by Dr. E. Michael Jones. He writes, Ralph Waldo Emerson most certainly read Paradise Lost because his most famous essay, Self-Reliance, resonates with the same satanic spirit and cadence. Having learned from Milton that, quote, the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven, Emerson concluded that, quote, nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind, end quote. When a generation raised on the Bible demurred, saying, quote, but these impulses may be from below, not from above, end quote, Emerson countered by invoking Satan, quote, they do not seem to me to be such, but if I am a devil's child, I will live then from the devil, end quote. Emerson got the idea that he was, quote, the devil's child, end quote, from the Calvinist principle of total depravity, which he rejected while at the same time retaining the satanic gist of the Protestant revolutionary spirit. So this is what I'm talking about. I think at the center of this is pride. Is pride. Is this rejection of God. It's this idea of just like you want to give thanks, you want to show reverence, you want peace, right? After being in this chaotic world and life problems and all of that, and at the same time, you're so the secular or the lukewarm is so prideful and thinking, all this crazy stuff, I'm just gonna grit my teeth and I'm gonna do it all by myself. But you can't do it all by yourself. You can't do it all by yourself. This is folly. This is pride. Why is it so hard to just be like to admit that? The beauty of a waterfall isn't going to provide order or some sort of structure to the world and life exigencies that can be calamitous, right? And people aren't stupid. They know that. They know that. But again, I think so many people, though, are stuck with that pride, that self-reliance, and it is noble, don't get me wrong. I think it is noble for the man to do as much as he can by himself, but listen, it's this is the world is bigger than just one man, right? Or just by yourself. And what's crazy about it is as we get older and things happen, you know, people come and go in our lives. And what's also interesting is that going to the woods for this sort of thing to get away and to find peace and to give thanks and all that, it's isolating. It's a form of self-isolation, and that's not healthy. We know that with human beings, they need connection, human social interaction. Those people wanna make connections with other people too, and that's okay. You go to church, and next thing you know, you can meet other people, and next thing you know, you can go to the freaking forest and hang out and chill out, and at the same time, you can make time to go to church and give thanks and praise at the proper place to God by listening to the word, by heeding the message of Jesus Christ, right? That's the place to do it, not at the place where the waterfall is. It's beautiful, but it's not the same thing. But I digress. I'm gonna leave it there. I try to keep this short, believe it or not, but let me know what you guys think. I really appreciate it. If you watch the whole video, that helps me out a lot, so I can keep bringing you this content. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate your support. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.